Well, hello there. It's been a while since I filmed one of these. Let's see, we are now about 8 months away from wedding. I am nowhere near where I would like to be. So, in theory, if I had been following my schedule that I made for myself back in like September, I would be on week 18 by now. I would have 18 panels done. I have two. So I'm kind of freaking out a little bit about that. Now, my second panel was the first one that I actually had like a full-on design attached to it, and it was one of my medium-sized petals. And I learned that I can get through one medium-sized petal in about 8 hours, which does make me feel a little bit better. Because as time goes on and as the job search is kind of going on, I'm realizing that I'm probably not gonna find another job before the wedding, which is really unfortunate, money wise, but is really fortunate when it comes to time and dedication. And now making this wedding dress is pretty much going to become my full time job. I just have to actually sit down and do it. Y'all, wedding planning is really stressful because you need to have like your entire finalized vision done like 8 months in advance. Like, there is no room for changing things later. And I don't even know what I want for dinner tonight. And how am I supposed to know what silverware I'm gonna want 8 months from now? And I know that I am very much one of the lucky ones in that Coleman actually cares about the wedding planning process, and he actually like cares about things and has opinions, but also it makes my life so much harder because I can't just do whatever I want and just say this, and this. I have to go through him first and make sure that it's something that he wants. And then half the time he wants something completely different, and then we have to like work things out and compromise, which I know is the point of marriage, but also it's just stressing me the fuck out. But anyway, the thing that's kind of holding me back with the wedding dress right now is I need time to actually like make a mock-up of the dress and figure out how big I want the petals to be, because right now the two that I have, I just kind of arbitrarily picked a size, but I need to figure out exactly how big I want them to be. The petals are also shrinking down a bit after I get them off of the frame, which I kind of anticipated because the tool stretches, which I was looking so hard to find non-stretch tool, but I couldn't find any in like the size that I wanted. But I can't work on my dress when Coleman is home because duh. Which, considering he never leaves work at the same time every day, I don't know how much time I have to work on stuff. Because I need to like do stuff out and like walk in the hallways and like be out in a bigger space than this. Also, what I'm doing is I'm designing my petals on my tablet, and then I am projecting the image onto the tool. So because I'm projecting, I need to make sure that I am doing all of my projecting at night. So in order to make sure that he's not going to walk in, I have to do it when he's asleep, which is at like 2 in the morning. So to be completely honest, considering that I really don't have a job here right now, I've been considering running down to New Orleans and staying there for like 2 or 3 weeks and just getting as much work done as I possibly can away from him. Because my mother's house is also massive, which gives me a lot of room to walk around and to try things on and to see how things flow. My mother also sews, so that would mean that she'd be able to like help me pin things and nip and tuck and do things. The con there is that she's also no fun at all and doesn't understand why I want a big poofy fancy frilly wedding dress, because she was never a girly girl herself. So anytime I like show her sketches or show her pictures and I'm like, no, it needs to be bigger here, it needs to have more volume, she's like, no, it really doesn't. It doesn't need to be bigger. It really doesn't. And I'm like, it's my wedding. It's what I want. It's not what you want. It's what I want. So I think my game plan for the rest of this week at least is I really need to nail down the patterning of how I'm going to pattern everything. It might not be exactly to scale, but I need like the general shapes of everything, which means I might be making a bum roll for my American Girl doll today. I need to make a bum roll for myself. So just real quick, I wanted to record that I'm working on the embroidery for my Magnolia panel, and sometimes these lines are a little hard to see. Sometimes I don't trace them over very well, and I was watching like 3 things at once on my laptop, and I was so like disheartened that I wouldn't be able to have my reference image up, and then I realized I used the same reference image for this. So every now and then I'm just looking up and looking at how all my petals connect, and I'm having a great time. Alright, so today is March 21st. I am on week 23 of 53, which means I have about 30 weeks to go until the wedding. Now, honestly, I've not made that much progress, and I'm kind of disappointed in myself, but I kind of have a reason for that. Let me consult my list of what I've done. As of right now, I currently have 5 petals done. One of them doesn't have any beads or anything on it. I'm not sure if I want to stretch it out and put beads on it again. We'll see. So I have my sample one that I made. I'm not sure if I'm going to wind up using it, but I like having it in this stack in case I need to fill in some space somewhere. I have the little fleur-de-lis done. I have When I'm 64. I have Cat, and I have the Magnolia done. So the main thing that's holding me back right now is I'm not 100% sure of the sizes that all of the petals need to be. Because I kind of threw together a sort of a makeshift mock-up of the overskirt, but I haven't done a full and proper one yet. I went to Walmart a couple weeks ago and I got myself a whole bunch of like clearance bed sheets and curtains and stuff so that I can make one. I also need to figure out how I'm going to get the shape that I want. Because if you look at the original Audrey dress, there's almost a little bit of a bustle in the back. All of the fabric kind of folds together and stacks. So the shape of the dress, the column is straight, but then the overskirt pumps out a little bit. And I think that's the shape that I want. I want there to be a little bit more volume in the back. And since that's going to affect where all of the skirt lies, it might affect the placing of the petals and how many petals that I need. So what I would like to do in the next coming weeks is, since I am still out of work and I'm going to need so much time off in the next couple of months that I don't know if it's worth it to go try to find a new job again. I'm probably going to have to because I am very rapidly running out of money, but we'll see. But anyway, what I would like to do is I would like to go down to New Orleans for a couple of weeks to go stay at my mom's house and work on things there. Because first of all, she just has so much more space than I do in this house. And second of all, because then I can like leave things up overnight and not have to worry about like hiding them before Coleman gets home. Because I think I need to do that, and I need to get a proper mock-up and a proper pattern for the structure of the underskirt before I can really nail down the sizes of the petals that I want. Because I'd really hate to put a whole bunch of work into a whole bunch of petals and then have them not be the right size. Because I already had to kind of adjust and kind of guess some of the petals that are going to go up on top over by the waist. Because when I was looking at Junon, the top layer of petals are they're like the size of pockets. They're really tiny and they have to be that small to kind of drape around the waist nicely. Because when I made my original mock-up, the top layer of petals were still pretty big. I think they were close to like that big around. So they didn't like lay nicely. But I don't want to do too many of those in case they're not actually the right sizes. So my plan was I was going to go a couple of weeks ago, and then we found out that my in-laws were coming up to visit because all three of them had spring break at the same time, which has like never happened before. So I had to spend a week or two cleaning up the house, and then they came up and they left yesterday. So the other thing that's kind of holding me back and is a little bit frustrating is I have to work on this at night because my room, and pretty much any room in the house, doesn't get dark enough that I can use the projector until nighttime. And then what I've been doing, which has been really helpful, so the little like disappearing ink pen that I've been using is blue, and it has blue ink. So I have these two smart bulbs in my room, and I've been setting them to a really like orangey amber kind of color, and it helps contrast that blue, and it helps make it a lot easier to see. Because on that tool, it's hard to see the lines sometimes. I'm also keeping track of the time it takes me to stitch all of my little petals. Which honestly, in general, they're going a lot faster than I thought that they would go. I kind of anticipated those like medium petals taking me like a full week to do. But my fleur-de-lis, which is my most complicated one so far, that only took me 7 hours, which is like 1 full day's worth of work. I think I did that one in 1 full day. The other ones I kind of split up over a couple of days. I think I decided that at some point in May is going to have to be my step back, take a look at everything, and seriously evaluate where we are. Because if I have to go to a shop and order a traditional dress, the end of May, beginning of June is like the last chance that I'm gonna have to be able to do that and be able to get it like made to me and fitted and altered. And even then I'm cutting it real close. So I think my goal is by the end of May, I want to be 80% done with the overskirt. As of right now, my plan for the underdress is I still want to use that same simplicity pattern that I've made like twice on this channel already. I'm also using the exact same satin material that I made for the blue dress. I just am making it in white now. And I know for a fact that I can turn that dress out in like 3 days. So I'm really not concerned about the underdress. I also want to wait until as close as possible to the wedding to do that because I don't know what my weight's going to be. I've been going to the gym pretty regularly and I'm hoping that I'm losing weight, but I also don't keep scales in my house because they make me obsess over my weight and it's not healthy. So I think by May, my tangible goals are I want the pattern done for the underskirt structure. I want to have figured out exactly how I'm going to get the shape, whether I'm building a bustle period bustle, or I think I'm just going to do some sort of a bum roll. I want to make sure that I have the shape done. I need to at the very least have the proper sizes of the petals, and I want to have the petals about 80% done by then, which I'm probably going to make around 40 petals, which means I think I need, like 36 petals done, somewhere around there. I also need to figure out my corset situation because I'm going to need to wear a corset with this dress to support the dress. I'm not 100% sure that I want to build it into the underdress yet, because I'm definitely going to need some sort of boning and some sort of structure in the underdress, but I don't know if I want it to be like the proper, like super structured, super rigid support corset. Because I'm not going to need all that support if I'm not wearing the underdress. So I'm kind of thinking, like, for the reception, I might, like, go step into a dressing room real quick, just take the under corset off, and then just wear the bodice. So I think by May, I need to have all of that figured out. But the problem is, again, with the corset, if I don't know what size I'm going to be by then, if I don't know what size I'm going to be by October, I can't really make the best well-fitting corset. So that might also be a week before cram everything to do thing, which I've always had this really bad habit of waiting until the last minute, and my mom and my teachers and my family and my grandparents always got so mad at me for it. But honestly, about 80% of the time, it's because of extenuating circumstances forcing me to wait until later to get things done. So when I say things like I'm not going to start making the actual wedding dress and my actual corset until like the month of, it's because I don't know what my weight's going to be, because it fluctuates so much. Because I don't want to spend all of this time now making it when I could be working on the overskirt, which is going to fit me no matter what. So I don't want to waste the time making the dress if I'm just going to have to completely undo it and redo it in a couple of months. Wedding planning has been stupidly stressful and stupidly expensive. All right, well, that's where I'm at for this little check-in. If anybody recognizes the background of this, then you have been around my channel for a very, 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 very long time. Also, Cane's has the best lemonade that I've ever had in my life, and you can't even fight me on it because I'm just right. Not sponsored, but Cane's, if you're listening. All right, today is April 14th, which means that I have about 27 weeks to go before the wedding. I've been here at my mother's house for the past week. So the reason that I came down to Louisiana to work on this portion of my dress is because I need a lot of space that I don't have in my Georgia house. Because my two big goals before I leave here in another week is I want to have the pattern for the underskirt. So I need to spend some time kind of engineering that and building that out. And I also want to figure out the exact sizes of the petals that I'm going to need, because I think those are the only two things until actually putting the dress together that I need a lot of space in. So what I have been doing for the past week is making mini mock-ups of the overskirt. And I've been using my Samantha doll as kind of a makeshift model so that I can start getting the general shape of the pattern pieces. Because for her, if I need to, I can make a full mock-up out of a pillowcase. So it's been easier for me to make smaller mock-ups for Samantha because I can make a full mock-up for her out of a single pillowcase. Whereas for me, I need significantly more fabric. So my goal is I only want to have to do one, maybe two mock-ups to figure out the pattern for my dress. And I think I've gotten really, really close to how I want to go about doing this. I do want to try one more round of mock-ups for her because I had an idea that I think might save a lot of time, a lot of fabric, and a lot of effort. Because the last iteration I did, I really, really like, but it's still just a little bit too much fabric. And I'll bring her out and I'll show you kind of everything, and I'll talk over all of my shapes and all of my mock-ups and how I kind of got there. And hopefully by the end of tonight, I will have my first mock-up of my skirt, or it's not really my first mock-up because I made one beforehand. I'll have the first round of the beta testing done tonight, hopefully. So I'm going to bring you back into my sewing room where I've been doing all my sewing, and I'm going to show you all of my little iterations and kind of show you my thought process behind a lot of those. All right, so this is version, we'll call this version alpha because this is the very first little mini mock-up that I made. I made this probably about a year ago now. Oh my God, I'm procrastinating this long. So this is just a half circle skirt, but I didn't cut anything for a waist because she's a doll and she has no waist. And this is kind of what I used for my basis of making my first big mock-up. because the first big mock-up was more of a proof of concept than anything. I also used this to kind of decide if I wanted my petals to have different sizes on the different tiers, or if I wanted them to just be all one uniform size. I decided on this one to have them different sizes. This is also a little bit closer to the Dior dress, and I think having a couple of really big petals on the bottom will help speed up the whole embroidery process. Now, the issue with doing this like a circle skirt is that there's not a whole lot of extra fabric here right over the butt. It kind of just goes straight down. And I want it to have a little bit more of a shape going off the back of it, closer to the Audrey dress. But nevertheless, I used this as kind of my starting point. Also, this is going to give me the opportunity to harvest all of my pins. I've been wondering where all my pins went, and they're all in the million versions of these. I do enjoy that I got to use this specific fabric to make this. So this fabric is the pillowcase that came with a duvet set that we bought back in like 2016 that I used to make a costume from an old silent movie to help out the music department at Florida Tech. And it's funny because the only two of us who showed up to like help out and dress in costume were me and Coleman. He's dressed as Charlie Chaplin, and I was just as Carmen, and the show was a burlesque on Carmen, and they were playing the music and showing the movie. But yeah, I got to use this to make part of my costume, so I don't know, I just think it's really cute that I get to use this as helping out, mapping out my wedding dress to marry the guy I was doing this with. So for this one, basically what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of narrow down the shape of the train I wanted a little bit. So in real life, my train isn't going to trail that far behind me because that's an awful lot of ground that I have to cover. But I knew I wanted it to be longer, a little bit longer in the back, a little bit shorter on the sides. And then for the front, I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of nail down the underskirt portion of this. And I knew this was going to have to be really short. I wanted it to not trail behind me. I wanted this to have a little bit of movement. So I knew in order to make this line up with the side, then the overskirt was going to have to nip in and become shorter. So for this mock-up, I was kind of working on this underskirt portion, and I realized that this kind of under piece doesn't have to be a full half circle because this piece is likely going to want to come a little bit more forward because I would like to avoid having the seam directly at the front. So then I started working off of this pattern. Still don't have any shaping in the back, still don't have any darts or gathers or anything in the back here. So then this became my basis for working on my next version. All right, so this is my Pepto-Bismol 1 dress. So for this one, what I did was I took that half circle pattern and then I made a slash in what would be the center back and then over where would be the hip. And I added in just kind of a little wedge there so that I could gather the waistband down because I know I'm gonna need some sort of gathering or pleating or something over the butt to make the shape that I want. So for this one, I slashed and spread. I kept the bottom attached and just kind of spread the waistband out so that I could narrow it down. So for this one, I just pleated the back of the waistband and I like this look. I do like it, and I think on a real person going down to a real waistline proportion, I think this would look good. But I'm not too happy with what's happening down here in the hem. I don't know if it's just this material or what, but I feel like down here in the hem, it feels a little restricted. And I noticed that the hem kept wanting to like pop up a little bit, which I wasn't a big fan of. The shape didn't feel right, you know? But I do enjoy how the underskirt kind of forces the overskirt to meet it and kind of pool around. That's kind of what I was going for. I want it to look like it's kind of wrapping over, so I am happy with that. So this is kind of what I wound up doing to the pattern. You see I added that little wedge on the center back and I added this little wedge over the hip. And I thought, I like this, I like the shape, but I think I can make it a little bit better. So I tweaked it a little bit and made my Pepto-Bismol 2, which I didn't make the full thing, so I just pinned it on top of Pepto-Bismol 1. And I liked this even less. I like what happens up here. So basically what I did here is instead of adding more kind of a wedge, I closed my wedges up, and then where I had the wedge, I just slashed the fabric all the way down and just spread it an equal amount. And then with that equal amount, I made some straight lines and then curved them in towards the waist so that the waist measurement would still be the same, but I'd have a little bit more room here. And I like the shape that I get here over the butt. The similar things happen over the hips, but I absolutely hate how the fabric down here behaves. It's not flowing well. There's no kind of flow to it. It keeps wanting to pull itself back instead of forward. And I remember being really frustrated with this because I thought this was going to be it. I thought this was going to be the version, and then I ended up really disliking it. Because while I like the gathers and the shape that any sort of gathers and pleats back here give me, I want there to be as little fabric here as possible so that when I go to sew petals on top, it's not going to kind of fold in over itself and hide everything. So this felt like a step back. I wasn't super happy with it. The next thing that I did was I figured, okay, well, what if I put the pattern back the way that it was with the wedge, and I just add like a really, really big wedge to it. Which led me to Pepto-Bismol 3, which I absolutely hated. So I wound up adding a ginormous wedge in the back of the skirt. And what that did was it wound up adding so much volume up in this top half that now the hem became super, super restrictive. And it basically turned the bottom into a rectangle skirt, which I did not like at all. I still want the circle skirt. I want the circle twirl factor. So I really, really, really hated this version. And I mean, if you turn her, you can even kind of see where this back seam is, instead of curving out, it comes in, which is not what I wanted at all. And then the front was doing some weird things that I also didn't like, and this was just a mess, and this frustrated me so much that I had to take a break for a couple of days, because every time I thought I was doing something that would make it better, it wound up making it worse. So I put this down for a day or two, thought about it before I came back to it. And here's kind of what I was talking about with my patterns. So this was the first version, Pepto-Bismol and Snowman 1, that I was talking about with the slash and spread. This was for PB2, where I kind of, instead of doing triangle spreads, I just opened everything up equally. This is what I kind of wound up doing for this third version. I just slashed and spread and just spread a lot, and I don't recommend. No, did not like that at all. Which leads me to my current front runner. I don't have a name for it yet. Turquoise 1, blue 1, we'll call it. So I sat there and I was thinking that I still want the circle hem and I want the circle skirt shape, but just because of the way math works out, there's not really a good way to add a whole bunch of wedges in here and still have the shape consistent. So I had the thought, okay, well, what if I basically make a circle skirt, but I make it for a waist that's a lot bigger than what I need, and then I can gather it down, and hopefully that will keep all of the proportions of everything the same. So I went back to the drawing board, I redrafted myself half of a circle. This time I cut everything on a curve, which I think definitely helped a little bit. So I started with the pattern wound up being for a quarter circle, because you double that and then you get the half. So I divided everything into a back section, a side section, and a front section. And I knew I wanted the back section to have a lot of volume, so I basically took those sections, I completely duplicated the back, I took the side section and I added in an extra like half of that side section, and then I left the front section as is because I do want a little bit of room over the hip. I'm really happy with how this turned out. Now this is after playing with it a little bit. I ended up just pinning this entire front section out of the way because it was just too much. And I like this, but this is still a lot of fabric, and I can essentially take out this whole section and still get the shape that I want, but without having a whole lot of extra fabric that I have to worry about folding in on itself and covering things and adding in more petals. So I want to try one more iteration before I move on to the big mock-up, just to see if it would work. I think I'm going to do a regular half circle. I'm not going to double it and do, try to squeeze a full circle skirt worth of stuff in the half. I'm just going to do a regular normal half circle skirt, but I'm going to cut this waist to be twice as big as I need it to be so that I can gather it down. And I want to give that a try. I think that should work. But sometimes things work out in our heads that don't work out in real life. So I do want to give that a really quick try before I move on and start working on the big one. Also, I went ahead and just made myself this little support thing under there just to help poof it out a little bit more. All right, and now I have my circle skirt kind of fixed. I just made a kind of like an overlay and just pinned it on top. I think I like the first version more, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I feel like this just added a whole bunch of extra more fabric in the back that I don't need. I think I like this more. I think I like this enough that I'm going to make a big one similar to this, just like this, and play around with it and see what happens. Because I figure if I just have a whole bunch of extra fabric, I can just take some out and remove some and it should be fine. So basically now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out some wrapping paper, roll around on it a little bit, get some ideas going, and we might do a quick little cut. All right, I have no idea if you're going to be able to see me because the lighting in this room is absolute garbage. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to measure out about how tall I want the sides to be. So I'm just gonna take my yardstick and, all right, I want my sides to, in theory, come out to about here. So I'm gonna mark right here is where the yardstick is. So now I'm gonna move my yardstick up to my waist. That's about where my waist is gonna be. And I'm looking, and that's coming down to the 8-inch mark. I'm gonna add 2 inches because I'm planning on wearing heels with this, and the heels are 3 inches. But I just wanna start out here and see where we get. So 36 plus 10, it makes an even 46. So the short section is gonna be 46 inches long, and then, let's see, I can see my reflection in the mirror behind y'all. That's probably good for a train. That probably comes up to what? What's that even, I think? Up to here? That's like 9 inches plus another 2 is 11. I'm gonna round that up to 12. So 46 inches to on the side to 48 in the back. And let's see where that gets me. All right, also it is hot in this house, so there's a little bit of an outfit change. So I've taped down some wrapping paper and hopefully enough that I should be able to draw all of this out, at least the first round. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of measure out where I want this to come to and kind of where I want this to wrap around, because I don't want my full waist measurement because then that's going to be too much to take in. And I think that might be where I went wrong on the doll mock-up. Almost said the Samantha mock-up. I'm Samantha, so I can't say that. So this is about where I would want the skirt to sit and to wrap around to. So I'm just gonna measure the length of this ribbon real quick. So now I'm going to do my calculations for the circle skirt and the radius after this 27 inches. So using Mood's circle skirt calculator, I decided that I'm going to do my measurements as if it was a 3/4 circle skirt instead of a half, because I don't want it to cut off right at my half point. I want it to come forward just to like the front of my hip bone, and that is going to be a little bit closer to a 3/4 skirt instead of a half skirt. And also because that gives me 4.97 inches as my radius, which is close enough to 5 for me. And even better, this wrapping paper has a grid, a 1-inch by 1-inch grid on it, so that's makes my job a whole lot easier. All right, so now I'm going to get on the ground and start drawing out to get my half circle skirt, and then I'm gonna cut the panels, and when I cut the panels and add stuff to the panels, that should, we're just gonna go for it. Now, y'all are gonna get to watch me struggle to fold this in thirds while my dinner microwaves. Alright, I'm okay with that being my 3 equal parts. Equal-ish parts. Perfect, okay. So this is the side section, So this is the side, which is going to be referred to as the front section. This is the side section. And this is going to be the back section. Close enough. Okay, let's go ahead and cut this. There. Okay. Now it's dinner time. All right, so it is the next day. My lighting is a little bit better, and I'm laying out and cutting out my first big mock-up. So I think what I decided is I'm going to use a different color to do my doubling sections. This way, when I get it on and I can kind of adjust and look at the skirt, I can see where all of the different pieces of the volume of the skirt are coming from. So if I put it on and I notice there's like a lot of folding and just a ridiculous amount of extra volume in the back, and it's going to be in that back section, then I know, okay, I don't need, maybe a full double of the back section, but I do need, maybe a half. And same thing, like if I go to pin stuff out of the way and I find that I completely pin away, that extra half of the side piece, then I can just know I don't have to worry about it. So I'm going to get this cut out, and then I'm going to cut out the doubles and then sew everything together. I'm also going to cut out a waistband out of this material. And I think for this, I'm just going to do like a rectangle, fold it in half, and then just use that as like a really thin waistband that I can sew things and tack things to real quick. So this way I don't have to do a new waistband for every single one. Okay, so here's everything laid out. So the way that I cut out some of these pieces determined where in the lineup they would have to go. They're not going to line up completely perfectly along the bottom, and I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that for now. I did know that I wanted to separate these addition pieces. I think I would have preferred to have this addition in between the back piece and the side piece, because I do want a little bit more volume in the back, but I'm not too concerned about it right now. That might be like a nitpick to fix later. I'm not quite sure what this is going to look like when it's all done up, because right now it's like right at about where I want the skirt to be. So who knows what's going to happen when I actually like gather it back down. I might have messed up, but that's okay. That's why we do the mock-ups. Because for the Samantha versions, I did a half circle skirt to her full waist measurement. And for this, I did a 3/4 circle skirt to the 27-inch measurement. So that might be where I went wrong, but we'll see what happens after I get all of this stitched up. I did also make myself this little waistband real quick, and I just marked the center back and 13.5 inches away from either side so that I can just gather it down real quick. So I'm going to get all of this stitched together. Then I'll gather everything down and attach it to the waistband. And let's see what that gives us. Okay, this is why we make mock-ups, because even with all of this extra stuff added in, this does not make the 27 inches. And I think it's because I tried to make a half circle skirt with the measurements that I needed for a 3/4 circle skirt. So I think what I'm going to do, just to try this on and to have all of this work not be completely for waste, is I'm going to do some lines of gathering stitches either 3 or 4 inches down, probably 3 inches down from where this is, and hopefully, just because of how math works with, math of circles, that should give me a big enough radius down here that I can attach it to the 27 inches on the waistband, and I can gather it down a little and like get an idea if that's kind of the shape that I want. So that's what I'm gonna do, and then the next time you see this, hopefully it will be on me. Okay, so I went to gather this down, and on one side, both of my threads just completely snapped on all of my layers. So after I freaked out for a little bit, because I am very frustrated with this, I decided that whatever. So the side that I snapped, I pleated down, because I figure I should see how this looks with pleats. And then the other side, I gathered it down, so now I can at least see pleats versus gathers to see which one I like better. So now let's go try this on. Oh, I should have brought my little petticoat. Give this a little bit of volume. I'm looking at a mirror that I have right behind you. You know, all that just happened, I'm not mad at this. I need something to floof this out a little bit. Let me see what I can find. Okay, so here's my first version of the skirt, and I just tossed this on real quick to get a little bit of volume under this one. Just see what this might look like with a couple of layers of something underneath. And I think we're getting close. I'm actually not mad at this. This is a lot of fabric. There's a pin stabbing me. Whew. This is also where all of my pins have gone. It's not quite 100% where I want it, but I also don't know what I would do to make it better. I'm not mad at it though. I thought I would be a lot more mad at it than I actually am. A little bit more of a train in the back, but this kind of shape. This is what I'm going for. We're close. Do we have the drama? Woo! This might be it. I think this is it. I might do a slightly longer train in the back, but also the petals will kind of take care of that. I'm not going to worry about the under part too much. That's not really going to show, but I actually kind of like the length of this train. So I think my next order of business is I'm going to take all of the petals that are on this mock-up, I'm going to take them off, give them a good iron, maybe a good steam, and start tacking them to that just to kind of see what it'll look like. Let's see if I still have my cast net skills. All right, let's get to work and find all of my pins.